We're learning Mishnah Gittin, Parakeh chapter 5, Mishnah Test, Mishnah 9. So for the first part of the Mishnah, a little background. Shvius, which is the word the Mishnah uses for the Shemitah year. Shvius means the 7. So Shvius or Shemitah is the name for every 7th year when it's forbidden to farm land in Eretz Yisrael. Owners must let anyone enter their fields and take whatever produce is growing there. The owner may store some of the produce in his house and take from his supply according to his needs, but once a particular type of produce can no longer be found in the fields, he must remove that type of produce from his house and declare it ownerless. This process is called biur. He is then allowed to reclaim the produce and use it as before. If one does not perform biur by the appropriate time, the produce becomes prohibited. Now, this is a very important introduction to the rest of the Mishnah, because this is the situation we're going to be dealing with. The Mishnah we're about to read refers to a case where, okay, let me read. The Mishnah test. Mash'eles isha lachaverta hachashuda ala shvius. A woman can lend to her friend who is suspect of shvius. Suspect of shvius means that she is suspected of keeping Shemitah produce beyond the cutoff date without performing biur. That's the situation. That's your neighbor. And she wants to borrow certain utensils to be able to prepare her food, which is forbidden because it's past the biur. It's past the time for biur. She didn't do it. It's really forbidden for her to be able to be doing this. Now, Samash'eles isha lachaverta chashuda la shvius, but a woman may lend to her friend who is suspected of Shemitah, means suspected of not keeping Shemitah properly, which therefore her food is permitted for her to have it to eat. Nafeh, you can lend her a nafeh. A nafeh is a sifter, which just for definition, a sifter separates fine flour from coarse flour. That's a nafeh. A kavara is a sieve, which separates chaff from grain. The reichayim is a mill, which grinds grain into flour. The tanner is an oven, even though she's going to probably use them to prepare the forbidden Shemitah produce, right? That's what this produce is forbidden, and she's going to be preparing it with these utensils. Now, you're lending her the utensils is basically, giving her the ability to do what she's not supposed to be doing. It's not lifnei iver. But at the end of the day, it's a problem in the sense that here you are assisting her in doing what she's doing wrong. And nonetheless, the Mishnah still says you can lend these things to her. However, she may not sort or grind her friend's Shemitah produce together with her. You can give her the stuff, but you can't participate with her in it. You can't participate with her. She may not participate with her in the actual preparations. But that she can't do. So she can lend her the utensils to do it herself, but she cannot participate together with her in the actual preparation. Now, the way it's explained, very interestingly, is the following. Now, we just said that this is Shemitah produce. She should have done biur, or her husband should have done biur. It wasn't done. It's produce that's forbidden to her. Now, they point out here, actually, it is generally not prohibited to prepare, meaning to grind or sift, forbidden Shemitah produce. Only eating it is forbidden. Nevertheless, if someone is preparing such produce in order for it to be eaten, another person helps her, the second one is guilty of assisting in the performance of a transgression. You asked a question before it should about lifnei iver. So it could very well be that in this case, it's not lifnei iver because, if you wouldn't have lent her, she could have got it from somebody else. It's not like she has her own access. Let's call it that way. Yeah. Let's just try to keep it simple. She has her own access, right? Yeah. She could do what she needs to do herself, but she asks you for yours. And now you're lending it to her. So lifnei iver, it's not. Okay. What it falls under is what we call misayeya lidei ovrei aveira, supporting, assisting those doing sins. So the Mishnah makes a distinction between whether you're giving her the stuff to do herself, meaning you're allowing her to do the preparation, right? You're allowing her to do preparation. And like we say, the preparation itself is not per se the problem as much as that she's preparing it to eat it, which eating would have been a problem. And therefore, what we say here is that you can lend her the utensils, but you cannot assist her in the actual preparation. It's kind of, you can be indirect, but not directly involved. That's the first example of the Mishnah. Next example, the Mishnah reads the following. Eishes chaver mash'eles le'eishes am ha'aretz. Now, a chaver is a person, that would be another word, let's say, for a scholar, but it means a chaver is someone who carefully observes the laws of Tumah and Maisris. Okay, that's the chaver. The chaver he knows and he is very careful with the laws of Tumah and Tara, the laws of purity and impurity, and we know that he is going to be taking off the Maisris, is going to be tithing properly his produce. And Amaretz, which we translate as someone who is ignorant, is someone who is neither careful in the laws of Tumah and Tahara, nor we suspect him of not separating Maisris. Now, this is called Demai. We've learned this a long time ago. Demai. And Demai actually is a rabbinic law. It says we don't really consider it a full-fledged doubt as to whether did he separate Maisris or not, because the majority of them do. Nonetheless, the Rabbanan, the sages, instituted, because of the minority who don't, that anytime you buy from an Amaretz, you got to be strict, and you cannot partake from it unless you separate the Maisris from it. So now you got the following situation. You've got the wife of a chaver, and her neighbor is the wife of an Amaretz. And now the question is, she wants to borrow utensils from you to go ahead and prepare food. Now, the food she's preparing, number one, is going to become tamei, which per se may not be a problem. Yeah. But the problem is if she is going ahead and preparing the produce that hasn't been meised, hasn't been tithed. That's produce you're not allowed to eat from. So here again, the Mishnah says that the wife of the chaver can lend her utensils, the nafo, kavara, the sifter, the sieve, even though not mentioned, it includes the other things mentioned before also, which were the mill and the stove. She can lend it to her. Not only that, she could actually even sort and grind and sift together with her. Meaning she could actually be involved in the preparation. Now, the reason why here is different than before is because before we suspect her, they don't keep Shemitah. We know they're not keeping Shemitah. They are dealing. That, or we suspect. I think our suspicion is a strong one. Strong suspicion. Let's go it that way. Okay, could be we even know, but that's what it's saying. Okay. But there we have to consider an issue, which is the deraisa, right? She's dealing with. She may come to eat these Shemitah produce that you're not allowed to, right? We're dealing with a deraisa problem. Mm-hmm. Here, as we said before, we're dealing with Demai. Demai, really, there's the majority of the Amei Aretz separated. So this is a stringency of the Rabbanan, of the sages. And therefore, being that we're dealing with that kind of situation, which means that when she is actually sifting and preparing, it may be 100% fine, because maybe her husband is the Amei Aretz who separates Maisris. And there's a majority of them who do. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we allow the Eishes Chaver to actually participate together with her in these preparations that before we said she can't. Avo, however, once she has added the water, meaning the flour has been made, now she's adding the water to the flour, which means she's making dough. Loisiga ima. Now she cannot touch it with her, which means she cannot help knead it. Why? Because we're not allowed to support those who commit a sin. What's the sin now? What's the problem now that we've added the water? So the answer is that number one, the issue here that's going to start happening is challah. And once you make a dough, then there becomes the obligation of separating challah from the dough to the kohen, right? That's challah. The halacha is, you may not, a dough, that the same way you can't make truma impure, you can't make challah impure. Even if you haven't separated the challah yet, it's still in the dough, you can't make the dough forbidden. You can't make it tamei, rather. It's forbidden to do that. Now she's an Eishes Hamaretz. She's not. Her. By we assume that everything by them is tamei, is impure. Yeah. So now when she's going ahead and she's making the dough, right? There's going to be a big problem here because she's making a tamei, and therefore now that only happens though once you add the water. First of all, once you add the water, that's when you're going to start making it a dough. Once you add the water, that's when it becomes susceptible to tumah, because that's another rule when it comes to tumah. That nothing is going to become, a food is not going to become tamei unless it first comes to contact with water. So here we have a situation where if it hasn't touched water yet, the water is going to make it susceptible to tumah, right? Make it susceptible to tumah. And even if it is already susceptible to tumah, now by handling the dough, you're going to make it tamei, and that is already forbidden. And therefore, the Mishnah says at that point, once the water has been added, once already. Or the way they explained it here is that once the water is added and mixed into the flour, the dough, meaning we're talking about once you're making a dough, then already it's subject to challah. The law is that before challah is removed from dough, one is prohibited to make the dough tamei, which is going to happen here, and therefore, at that point of where she's making the dough tamei, which is a prohibition, then already we say you can't be involved in that. So the earlier stages, you want to lend her the utensils, you want to prepare the grain into flour, that you can do. Mm-hmm. But to go in and help her knead the dough, that you're not allowed to, because creating the dough and now making a tamei is forbidden, and that she cannot be directly involved in. We will continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.